us against the background of an op-ed piece she had published in the papers a couple of weeks ago. And she raises a bag of questions in that op-ed piece, and to many of them saying she has no information. She don't know what's the answer. We also have with us Dr. Lloyd Barnett from Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections, as well as Daniel Archer from National Integrity Action. And Dr. Barnett, let me come to you, because CAFE also believes that the office needs to be reinstated as a standalone office. Tell us why.
There are some institutions which are of critical importance to the preservation of our democracy. Our democratic process involves the holding of elections in an atmosphere of freedom and free from fear and in peace. And the whole objective of the establishment of this office, which is more than 2 decades ago, was to deal with that particular problem that had plagued our electoral system. And there's no doubt that it succeeded in contributing to solving the problems. So that when the bill was tabled, CAFE opposed it. Unfortunately, not many other persons came in to assist us in opposing it. And they have really given no rational reason why they changed their position and why they established this system, which is obviously unworkable.
Why do you say it's unworkable?
Because of the very things that has just been said by the representative of the opposition party, namely that it consists of political representatives who are involved in the process, in the election campaigns, so that they're not able to have an unbiased, objective approach when a problem arises, in which you have to adjudicate, try to persuade people what to do. It might include your own people or the opposition people, and that is almost impossible to be achieved by an organization. The other thing is that the law provides for persons to make confidential reports to the ombudsman, the political ombudsman, and the reason for that was that a person may wish to make a report but doesn't want the party that the report is targeting to be aware of it, because that person might feel that they will be in danger. And for this to be now seen, these reports to be now seen by political representatives who now form part of the new political ombudsman arrangement, is completely inconsistent with that confidentiality provision.
Daniel Archer, let me bring you in. What have we seen over the past year?
We haven't seen anything. We haven't seen the actions of the ECJ taking up the responsibilities of the political ombudsman, have we? Have we seen them actively overseeing or monitoring the electoral activities? We've heard allegations of voter buying. We've now had the situation of the banners. There are other situations that have come across because we are in the season of elections. Have we heard them say anything? So having not heard them say anything about what the mechanism is, what the process is, whether or not an individual, not any of the commissions, and whether or not an individual has been appointed to oversee the responsibilities and the roles of a political ombudsman, we haven't seen any of that. We are now on the cusp of an election, and you still haven't heard from them. In fact, just a while ago, you said they have not spoken because they are not ready to speak. When will you be ready to speak? When we have an election call?
So
and
what?
I say that in the context of the words of the minister who said,
I'm so sorry, I'm not hearing. Let me just let Daniel Archer finish, and I'll come back to you, Dr. Barnett. Finish your point for me.
I believe it was Minister Chuck who said, let us have a political ombudsman in place without any political consideration, because this body can perform this role with independence, with fairness, and with credibility and integrity that they've done in the past. Regrettably, they have not acted in the role of political ombudsman in the past, and so far, they have neither demonstrated any independence, they have not taken an opportunity to speak to the public or give the public any indication that they can be fair in such matters and act without bias. And sadly, we don't see them having any credibility to be able to deal with this, given the composition of the ECJ.
So what needs to happen now, Mrs. Parchment Brown?
Well, I believe they need to repeal the amendment, and they need to appoint a political ombudsman. I was very disheartened to see in the legislation that the amendment, that the memorandum and objects and reasons was that since 2022, there had been no political ombudsman, and the duties of the ombudsman needed to be carried out. So they're going to subsume it into the ECJ. It boggles the mind. You have a duty to appoint. You have not appointed. So how does that turn into changing the structure? I recently had access to a form which has been created by the OPO ECJ to take complaints, and it is a digital form, lots of personal information from the person complaining. And in fact, the only other action I've seen is where the director of elections terminated with 3 days' notice two members of staff, one the office attendant, one the messenger, with just 3 days' notice to go on retirement, and not even making decisions about making the staff redundant so they could be paid for their between 5 and 20 years of service to the people of Jamaica. Just very untidy. I think they need to repeal and correct these problems.
You don't think there's any way to fix it as it currently exists? Suppose there's a mechanism, for instance, that the 3 nominated members and non-political members sit as a political ombudsman. Could that cure the concerns you have?
That was raised at the time, Dion. A lot of those questions were asked, and the minister who had carriage of the legislation was very clear that it was a unitary political ombudsman within the ECJ. So the 9 members would be operating as a whole. Now, in my opinion, and I greatly respect the members of the ECJ, all of them, but even if only the non-political members were to take on this task, it takes them into an arena that I don't believe is beneficial to the ECJ in general and the respect and regard we have for it. Political ombudsmen over the years have all been accused of bias, all been accused of talking when they shouldn't, etc., etc. We don't want any of that sort of partisan thing attaching to people's commentary on the ECJ.
Dr. Barnett, I think you are coming back in. My apologies.
Yes, I'm sorry. The fact is that as composed, the ECJ cannot perform the task adequately. It cannot be solved by transferring the task to 3 members and not to the entire, because the statutory duty is on every member to be part of this ombudsman institution. So that suggestion about the 3 non-political members acting can't work with the statute as framed. But you see, when the elections get near, the ECJs should be allowed to concentrate on the management of the electoral system and not become involved in seeking to mediate and judge conduct in relation to the conduct of the campaign. Those 2 functions should never be confused. And when the act was passed, there was really no rational basis given for its implementation. And up to now, there has been no rational basis given for retaining the amendment.
Well, I'm right at the break, so let me ask you all to hold on. We'll come back in just a moment. We're talking about the Office of the Political Ombudsman. Remember our WhatsApp line, 876-254 069, the Office of Political Ombudsman, currently subsumed into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. We're asking our guests what they think of that. We've been asking you as well. Or WhatsApp line 2540693. Dennis in St. Anne says, I suggest the Electoral Commission appoint a Director of Ombudsman Affairs who reports to the subcommittee of the Independent Commissioners. He should take complaints, refer them to the subcommittee, and be the face of the ECJ as it relates to communication with the public on ombudsman issues. And Ricardo in Connecticut says the Office of Political Ombudsman is a waste of time and taxpayers' money. Look how many times politicians have breached the political code of conduct. One even said he wasn't signing any code of conduct, if memory serves me right, and nothing was done. Horace in Boston says the two entities should never have been joined. It's a clear conflict of interest, and we hope the Prime Minister will correct this before the election. And Shorty in Westmoreland says the Office of the Ombudsman should be independent. No politician should be on it. Thank you so much. Keep your comments coming. 2540693. We're talking to former Ombudsman Donna Parchment Brown, Dr. Lloyd Barnett, Director of CAFE, Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections, and Principal Director at National Integrity Action, Daniel Archer. So, Daniel Archer, can the current situation be cured, be fixed, be repaired or adjusted in any way to make it workable?
I hear you, I know you're coming to me with that. I was thinking about this African proverb that says, do not look where you fell, but where you slipped. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty sure that the government of the day is not going to reverse their decision. They are going to stand, and they're going to stand on it as they have stood on it, and they are going to be adamant. The challenge for us is to figure out how we can make it work. Dr. Barnett has pointed out that the decision was to have them be unitary. I don't see how that can work, given that it's going to be impossible to escape the allegations or even an inference, not just allegations, no, but inference of bias. I think we'd have to look at a solution as to how the commissioners themselves can perhaps delegate. I don't know if this is something Dr. Barnett can be done, but perhaps, as your caller has suggested, having an officer be the face of it, but you would still have the utter root of the problem, which is you are going to have the ECJ conducting both roles, and both roles are mutually exclusive. Where we are is perhaps accept, Dion, that there is tricks in trade, matches boxing business. What's the motive of the government to get rid of the political ombudsman? What's the motive of the government in not ensuring that there is a code of conduct that can be enforced against all politicians? Is there a particular aptitude or attitude or something that they want to preserve, why they are hesitant to have a code of conduct and why they don't want anybody speaking about any political violations? We have to be concerned. And so I think the solution is for the people themselves to decide that to ask the ministers to clamor for it, because myself, Dr. Barnett, and the former political ombudsman are of no moment. This is a matter that affects every Jamaican, and it goes to the core of our democracy, because it may very well be that it is one of the things that they are aiming to do, which is to remove any oversight of these elections, to confound and confuse the objectives of the ECJ, eradicate the office of the political ombudsman, ignore the promise of having a code of conduct, so that they can do that as they wish with our elections. And we simply see the democracy that we have failing away.
The issue, though, of my train of thought just derailed and left me. So while I'm waiting for it to come back, let me come back to Donna Parchment Brown then on a related issue, because Daniel is saying there the people need to speak. But if people are of the view, as one of my callers just said, boy, the office was a waste of time and money anyway, politicians were ignoring it, then doesn't that perhaps undermine the desire of people to say, okay, this is an office we need to bring back in a certain way?
Forgive me, Dion, you had 4 respondents, of which one was of that view, and the other 3 were very much pro the office. So forgive me if I consider that to be a majority vote in favor of.
A very unscientific vote.
Well, it's the best we can do today. But what I'll say, we are challenged in Jamaica by what we call apathy, yes? And particularly in the political space. And the apathy is not about a lack of interest. A lot of it is about the process, the mechanism for making yourself heard, and also risks people may feel attendant on going against the powerful or going against the authority. I agree with Daniel that ideally there would be a campaign that would say, look, this does not meet the need. When the groups of Jamaicans and political leaders met 25 years ago, 35 years ago, to talk about the challenges facing the country, these institutions, as Dr. B mentioned, were not just a fiction of a single mind. They came out of the collaborative effort of Jamaicans, and we have seen the benefits. Now, it's important that those who lead us understand that we accept that they will make decisions that may not be the best decision, but we can accept they may have made it with the best intention. But we also expect that when they see that it is not working and also potentially harmful to other institutions and to democracy in general, that it may be time for them to say, we have had 1 year, we have reviewed the 1 year action, and we think that it's important to do something else. Because I believe that the ECJ is in great jeopardy. And I agree with Dr. Barnett that it is a complete corporation, the Political Ombudsman Commission. You can't pick it apart and give different people different tasks. When I was the Ombudsman, it was a commission sole. It is now a commission of 9. And you can't divide that work up in terms of even deciding whether to pursue a complaint. I used to be driving all over Jamaica, meeting with people, getting people telling me things on the ground in and out of election time. We had 15 police officers across Jamaica whose job was to listen to what was going on, investigate, and provide information. It was very important to people feeling that they may not always be happy with what was done, but my impression was that more than 85% of the time they were satisfied with what was done by the office. But they more importantly were glad they could call someone. Mm-hmm. I have so many video messages and other messages in my phone from people I don't know at all who got my number. And I was able to investigate those things and do something about them. It protects the politicians and it protects the public. But we're asking too much of the ECJ at this time.
Dr. Barnett, are you as pessimistic as Daniel in terms of whether there would be there would be that change, whether there would be that?
I don't know, because when the Secretary of the party spoke, he suggested that the PNP are asking for reconsideration of the matter.
Yes.
And it would be easy if both parties agree to reinstitute the position merely by removing the new clauses which are put into the Act, and to deal with the administrative and financial problems which that caller mentioned. Although, in fact, he conceded the importance of the functions, but was concerned about the cost. The cost can be dealt with by a number of matters, which I won't go into now, but there needs to be a way to protect our constitutional institutions, because it is not only those institutions that are written in the Constitution that are important to the preservation of democracy. And we have to be effective, and it just means mobilizing. The private sector should be speaking. Political instability is not good for the private sector, and they should not give any money to the political parties when they destroy our political system.
Yes.
That was a good way of...
That's a good suggestion, Dr. Barnett.
Yes, I agree.
But then, if I may carry that thought, Dr. Barnett, that's an excellent suggestion. But lobbying is a very real thing, and we still have a problem in terms of companies and the interests that they serve and the things that they want to get from the government by supporting the government.
Oops. Hold on. A gremlin got in the phone line there. Go again for me. We lost her.
I'm right here.
No, can you repeat that for me? Gremlin got into your phone line.
Suggestion is excellent, but we also have to deal with the issue of lobbying and the real things that many of our private sector entities have an interest to serve. And their interest to serve is often always much grander than supporting such efforts as he has said. They want their interest, they want their added benefits, and whether or not they're willing to give that up for the benefit of the public is a real question.
A little out of time, but Ms. Parchment Brown, you want to comment quickly on that issue as well, that call by Dr. Barnett?
Yes, I do believe that a combination of the business community, NGOs, and public at large is important. And I think the business community can and should be the point of despair, because a short-term interest in financial gain could be a long-term loss of business and of credibility and of the support of the very customers who make up the public. So I do think all strategies should be, pulled forward.
Have to leave it there. Can I thank you all so much? Really appreciate your time talking there with Donna Parchment Brown, former political ombudsman, Daniel Archer of National Integrity Action, and Dr. Lloyd Barnett of Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections Cafe. Keep your comments coming. 254.
Maintenance workers at the National Water Commission who took strike action on the weekend have agreed to resume duties effective immediately following a meeting with the management this morning. Acting Corporate Communications Manager at the NWC, Delano Williams, says some members of the team have been dispatched to disrupted systems that are awaiting maintenance support. Mr. Williams says the issues of concern to the technical staff that led them to take industrial action are still being discussed. The management of the NWC met today with the 5 unions representing the disgruntled workers. The workers are contending that their positions were not properly evaluated under the Public Sector Compensation Review Scheme, resulting in them being rated too low. Agriculture Minister Floyd Green says research and development will be critical in leading real growth and productivity and innovation in the sector. Minister Green says the government is working to match investments with the trajectory and challenges present in the sector to better capitalize on returns. With a $600 million commitment to renovations in Montpellier St. James over the next 6 years, Minister Green says investments represent the government's push towards redevelopment and improvement.
Montpellier for a long time has had a research station. Unfortunately, over the years, it has declined in terms of the amount of resources that was put into it. And we are embarking on a redevelopment program for a Montpellier research station. We're going to be putting in perimeter fencing. We're going to be putting in irrigation. We're going to build out new pastures. We're going to focus on specific areas like ginger, turmeric, things that you're already doing well, but we wanted to do better. Cocoa and dealing with frosty pod. We're going to be driving our livestock breeds to ensure that Montpellier is a beacon for these farmers right here in St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover.
Agriculture Minister Floyd Green, he was speaking at the 42nd Annual Montpellier Agricultural and Industrial Show on Monday. A reputed corporate area gang leader who was wanted by the police in connection with a triple murder and other serious offences has been captured by the police. 33-year-old Orlando Grant, otherwise called Rufus and Glasses, was arrested yesterday during an operation at a school in St. Andrew where an Easter holiday event was scheduled. According to Commanding Officer for the St. Andrew North Police, Acting Superintendent Randy Sweeney, the alleged gangster was apprehended with a modified weapon with an Invisiswitch plate, commonly referred to as a chip Glock, enabling it to fire automatically. Grant was taken into custody without incident and in the presence of several others. One of the magazines was reportedly transparent. He is expected to be formally charged soon. Acting Superintendent Sweeney described Grant as a major player behind the violence in several communities and the alleged leader of a gang operating in the area.
The arrest of Grant is significant for the St. Andrew North Division and by extension the JCF because he is a person of interest in several crimes that were committed not only in the St. Andrew North Division but also other divisions to include the St. Andrew Central. Now, the apprehension of this man is significant because we are of the view that it can have meaningful impact on crime and violence, especially in the Grand Spend area.
Commanding Officer for St. Andrew North Police, Acting Superintendent Randy Sweeney. He says Grant was listed as a person of interest in a triple murder committed on April 1 in 2022 at Morgan Lane in Grandspen. He was also wanted for questioning in connection with the murder of O'Shane Barkley, otherwise called Buds, who was killed on May 14 last year at Rilla Avenue, Kingston 8. The latest crime statistics show that the country recorded 219 murders up to yesterday. This is 127 fewer than the 346 homicides recorded over the similar period last year. The police high command has argued that the strategy of targeting gangs and gang leaders has led to a 37% reduction in homicides. There have been reductions in other major crimes such as rape, shootings, robberies and break-ins, despite mounting complaints from residents across the island of increased criminal activity in their communities. 15 of the 19 police divisions have recorded a reduction in murders. The St. Andrew South Police Division recorded the highest number of homicides with 31, followed by St. Catherine South with 15, St. James 18, and St. Catherine North and St. Anne with 15 each. Meanwhile, 171 people were wounded in violent attacks over the period, compared with 295 for the similar period last year. That is the latest news on Radio Jamaica. I'm Deidre Ann Gordon.